As we kick off the new year, here's just some things I think all social pros should be thinking about. All right, there's a few buckets. The first one we're going to start with is AI. There's a bunch of stuff with AI that I'm going to reference. The first one you're not going to love. I'm not going to love it, but I think it's a real thing that we got to talk about. We got to be prepared to defend against and strategize around. Social teams are going to be challenged to do more with less. It's just the way it is. I'm already hearing it from some of our clients. I'm seeing it kind of within the world of social. And so that's something we got to talk about and think about and strategize around, especially as you're resourcing, especially as leaders. You're going to start getting pressure to, do we need this person? How many people do we really need to be doing social? Can't ChatGPT do it? Some other things that AI is going to present is we're going to see a lot of things on these platforms, these channels that are artificially intelligence that are generated, and it's going to change the way some of the platforms even kind of come to life. So as the platforms start to show more AI content, I think there's going to be a few things. One, I think you're going to see new social platforms. We're already seeing it pop up that are saying, we're not AI. You can't post AI in this platform because people are going to be looking for that sort of content. Or one more that I think we've got to think about for AI. I talked about this a little bit on social, but AI will become a bit of a new word of mouth. And the idea of that is, recommendations from friends used to be a real big determining factor for how people are learning about brands, potentially buying products. And social always like to think that we can do that too, right? We can increase earned media, we get people to follow us on social. But as AI is starting to scrape the web and the internet to kind of pull things in, it's giving recommendations. And so people are going to these platforms to say, where should I go on vacation? Where should I stay while I'm on vacation? And so word of mouth is going to start to be influenced by artificial intelligence. And so what are we doing to create content that is feeding that? This is one I don't have an answer for, right? But I know it's one that's happening. It's something I even use it for. And as content strategist and social strategist, we got to think about what does that look like for word of mouth and AI. On the heels of all this AI stuff, one thing that I think is exciting for social professionals is I believe there's going to be a kind of a rebirth of original creativity. I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately because I think the first half of the year, we're going to start to see and feel more from what's happening with AI. But as people get tired of this, other things are going to change. A few things that I want to kind of point out. I think we're going to see more original social shows. So you've seen things like from some brands like Built has this show called Roomies. And there's a lot of social shows that are out there today. I think it's this idea really of how can social be more actual storytelling, not kind of one-off little moments, little laughs, but how can it actually have scenes and plots and narratives? And to me, that's so exciting because it means social can be what it's always intended to be, which is a channel to distribute communication, entertainment, and I think that's exciting. So I think original creativity is going to come to life more in social. The other thing that you're going to see is a growth in YouTube and longer form storytelling. I think there's a big opportunity for brands when it comes to YouTube. We've talked about it a bunch here that I think brands have to continue to stop looking at their YouTube channel as just a dumping ground for your ad, but really think about how do we build audience here, and it's just going to be so much different. And sure, YouTube Shorts is doing well, and we have to consider that, but really thinking about longer form storytelling. And the last one in this section is, I just think the social media professionals that are watching this today are going to have to do less copying. When I think about original creative, it means spending lots of time doing research and coming up with things independently for your audience, for your brand, rather than saying, oh, I saw this brand do this. I've seen this all the time. We do it. Everyone does this. Here's this idea, and here's 3 links to where this idea already exists so you can see what we're talking about. Look, that's fine, and that is going to exist some, but what you're doing is you're just drafting off of somebody else's idea. And I think as these channels become more storytelling devices, I'm hoping to see more original creativity from brands. This is a trend I'm definitely feeling, and I'm hearing about it. And there's actually news going on about people wanting to more regulate their feeds and know what's actually feeding their algorithm. And I think that some channels, rather some platforms, are going to have to start to create transparency in how people's for yous and feeds are created. But really the macro trend that I think is kind of existing is people are saying we want what we want. And where I think brands can come in here is they got to start thinking about how are we building fans? Because if people start saying, I just want to see stuff from my friends and family, which by the way, that's what they're going to do. The more transparency they get with regulating their own feed, guess what's going to go out, right? It's going to be brands. And so you have to find a way to show up and actually have value and create a relationship that makes you want to stay in feed We used to talk about this at Universal all the time. We used to say, what is our value proposition for them to follow us on social? They don't have to follow us on social. What are we providing in their daily lives? What value are we giving them? And that's kind of shifted over the past 3 to 5 years. As people start to regulate their feeds more and platforms create capabilities for us to do that, brands are going to be forced to really, really think more about what value are they providing and how are we building audiences with these people so we can show up in their feed. Otherwise, everyone's going to click that little thing that says, this is not relevant to me. I don't care about this. Skip this ad. And now we're doing the thing that we hate, which is creating content people don't want. So that's another one that I think is building fans and creating content around fans. But if I took that another couple steps, I think we're going to have a little bit of a resurgence of the year of community management. If you're a social media professional and you've been doing this for a long time, you definitely have some kind of love and passion for managing communities, getting into the channels, interacting with your fans, talking to them. Man, I remember the days of old. I'm an old guy, but I remember the early days of social where people would freak out if a brand liked their photo or commented, oh my God, did you see Red Bull commented on my photo? Oh my God, did you see someone posted a piece of my UGC? Like, those things were so cool. And as those things became regular and normal, they kind of got pushed down for this kind of, unhinged social that's happening today. But I think community management's going to come back. And I don't think it's just online. I think brands have got to start to figure out, how do we create real experiences, whether those are events or meetups or ways for your fans to connect. At the end of the day, you stand for something as your brand amongst the community. How can you rally those people together to build that brand and that relationship? And I think that's directly in line with the strategies that social media professionals think about. And so I'm excited to think about how can brands focus on fandom and create these mechanisms, whether it's online, whether it's through community engagement or actual in-person experiences. I think this could be a really, really big way for people to connect emotionally with their customer next year. This is one that people are not going to like to hear, but the reason why trends exist is because behaviors from consumers change every single day. And a lot of times they're changing because they get bombarded with the same thing over and over again. And talking head videos and UGC style videos are just everywhere. People talking to your feed. I do it. I apologize. But as those have become so prevalent in the platforms and brands are going to be forced to do more unique storytelling, I think the value of that UGC from just kind of a talking head talking to a person is going to go down. I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think UGC style content's going away by any means. I don't think lo-fi content in that way is going away. But I think what's the expectations are going to change is something we talked about earlier, which is the storytelling's got to go up. And so you're seeing a bunch of creators online creating real sketch comedies, real entertainment focused. It's kind of like the call out to social shows. And so I think the talking head, UGC style kind of thought leader content is going to slowly start to become something that people start to ignore. And it's going to force content strategists to think, okay, how do we get attention in a new way? And I think it's about more narrative. I think it's about more plot-focused social storytelling that's still UGC and still lo-fi. And so I think brands have got to think about, what is our strategy to elevate our storytelling if we can't lean on this UGC creator DIY or this haul or I went here or watch me do this thing. I think those things are just going to become noise. And so we got to think of new ways to create storytelling. I think this last one is one that might be debatable. And I'm not sure if I'm standing fully on this wall just yet, but I've got my eye on it. The unhinged social, the Gen Z social, I just don't know what it's going to look like next year. There's a lot of brain rot content that's out there. There's a ton of AI content, as we've talked about. And so as I predict that there's going to be more a lean into storytelling, long form narrative, more plot driven content to build audiences and build fans, to me, this stuff becomes so micro moment. I don't even know if people are following people from this content. I think they're getting entertained by it and I think they're sharing it. I actually don't know if it's providing any brand value. And so that is really the debate. Are we just entertaining just to entertain? Or is this entertainment actually creating connections? I don't think it is. And so I think at some point social media people and really even VPs of marketing have got to look at social strategies and going, what is this really doing for us? And I would challenge that it gets you some attention. It might make social media professionals talk to each other and tell each other they're great. I don't know if the value is there. And so my prediction is end of year, some of this is going to start to slow down and it might even go away. And I don't know, as a storyteller, I think it might be good. But right now I know it's a strategy. I know it gets some attention, but is there valuable attention there or not? I don't think so. And so I think we're going to start to see as teams mature, as brands mature in social, that this starts to happen less. We'll still have entertaining content. We'll still have what I would call lo-fi content. But I think this kind of edgy, Gen Z, ridiculous, kind of brain rottish stuff that exists in some pockets, I think that's going to go away. I think the last one here for me is it's just about creativity. I know we've talked about storytelling a lot in this talk, but the brands that spend the most time coming up with great ideas for an audience are the ones that are going to win. And I know that sounds ridiculous and simple-minded, but if you go talk to creators today, they're spending hours coming up with ideas. They're spending more hours refining those ideas and more hours talking about those ideas and cutting the fat before they get to anything that they're actually producing. Brands don't do that. We come up with a few ideas, we try to get them into a slide deck, and we put them out the door, and we get into pre-production. And there's nothing wrong with that. We got to create content. We got to engage fans. But I think the people that are doing less better are going to win next year. But the less better has to be really great, memorable content. I'm re-listening to a podcast right now and rereading a book on Jesse Cole from the Savannah Bananas, which talk about a bucket list guest interview for radical content. I don't know. We got to make that happen somehow. But he talks about the importance of being memorable. And he talked about why their social platforms are 10x the same size as the freaking New York Yankees on TikTok. Well, there's a reason why they're doing that. Is they're focused on fans first and entertainment first. That's kind of their whole mantra. But when they first started doing social, they didn't have a bunch of social pros that have been doing this for 20 years. That's some people that came in and said, here's our principles as a brand, activate this and bring this to life on our social platforms. And they tested and failed and tested and failed, and they found one that worked, and they said, okay, how do we do more of that? We provided so much value. It was a long form video that was, I think it was like a song and some of the baseball players doing something to a song, but it was fun. And it took real time to do something different and differentiated. So I love his idea of be memorable. Getting attention is so important. You got to be memorable. And so I think the people that are going to be the most memorable, the brands in 2026 are going to be the ones that are spending the most time researching ideas, writing ideas, sharpening ideas. That is the predictions list for 2026. It's my first one. I don't know. Maybe we'll do one next year. Maybe we won't. But I hope you enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, my goal in these is to really give you things that can help you in your everyday. Maybe something you can share with your team. Maybe something you can share with your boss. As Marmol said earlier today, maybe something you can share with yourself. But we appreciate it. Episode 41 in the books. We'll see you.